President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden trying to win over Florida voters.
I feel so powerful. I'll walk into that audience.
And we should have no tolerance for extremist white supremacist groups marching on our communities.
With weeks to go, we hear why each candidate is the best choice for voters of color. The economy, criminal justice reform, and health care are among the many topics we will discuss. The official presidential debate may be canceled, but our unofficial one is not. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to NBC 6 Voices. I'm Jawan Strader. You are joining us virtually on Facebook, on NBC 6, and also the YouTube pages, so I welcome you. Also, we want to welcome discussion as well. If you have something you want to say or something you would like to ask, please feel free to do so on the side. Just know some of those negative comments or curse words will not be getting on, not on my show. So don't even try it, but let us know what you think. But those won't be getting on. So if you have something to say, something that you want to add, please feel free to do so. Okay, but let's keep it clean. This is going to be a great show as we're going to hear from two intelligent men about how they feel about their prospective candidates. So let's get right to it. Okay, we're going to talk about basically on this show about the critical vote that is happening in Florida, why it's so important. We know it's all about Florida when it comes to the election here. And we want to know how many voters in South Florida are feeling. And we do understand that when it comes to those of color, that some people feel that those of color only lean one way, but there's some polling showing that Black voters may be feeling a certain way when it comes to President Trump. Actually, he may have a few more supporters when it comes to those of color than people may think. So let's get right to it. We want to introduce you to our guests who are going to add their thoughts, and they're basically going to have a nice, lively debate. And I am here to pretty much moderate that lively debate. And I'm going to leave it to them to talk about their candidates, but I'm going to ask them questions. So please welcome to NBC 6 Voices right now, Levi Williams. He is an attorney, a Republican activist, and former school board candidate.
Hello.
Attorney, how are you doing? Attorney Williams, you good?
Good to be here. Good.
All
Thank
right,
you.
get ready, my brother. Get ready. All right, next we have Alan Williams, no relation, believe it or not. He is a former state representative and former chairman of the Florida Legislative Black Caucus. He's also a strategic advisor to the Biden campaign in Florida. You see his sign there right behind. He came out ready. You got the sign there right behind. And Attorney Williams, hold up, where's your sign? Where's your hat? Where's your Make America Great Again hat?
The candidate is president. Don't need to advertise.
You don't need to advertise. Okay, I heard that. You already came out swinging. Okay, well, let's get right to it now. This is going to be a nice spirited discussion here. So first of all, thank you both for being here. So let's begin tonight with the response, okay, to COVID-19. That's what everyone has been talking about. So let's talk about that right now. The COVID-19 response and the coronavirus. The president says he feels great despite being hospitalized 2 weeks ago with COVID-19. Nearly 16,000 Floridians, though, have died or have succumbed to COVID-19, not died, as we've discussed on this program. But people of color are adversely impacted by the disease as we see a new wave across the country and around the world. So let's get right to it. And when we're talking about the United States, 7.91 million coronavirus cases here in the U.S. alone, more than 200,000 deaths in the country. So let's start with you, Attorney Williams, and let's ask you, why? Why should people of color vote for President Donald Trump again or reelect him as president when some believe that he has failed in the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, thank you for that question, Joanna. The COVID crisis is a real crisis, and President Trump recognized it as a real crisis. I make no excuses for the president, flippant personality in communication. He comes from an entertainment background, a negotiation corporate background. He's not a statesman, but he is effective at implementing policy. And what he did first in closing our borders to China was critical. Nancy Pelosi, went down to Chinatown, criticized him for it. Biden criticized him for it. But at the end of the day, as far as closing the border, increasing manufacturing of PPEs here, increasing manufacturing of drugs here, these are issues versus China, by the way. These are issues that he was criticized about prior to Corona, dealing with bringing things back home from China. Now we see how critical that is to our healthcare and our national security. The narrative being given by the opposing party as far as Biden's campaign is concerned, everything they say Trump has done as far as getting the manufacturing of the PPEs done. What they haven't said, and what I don't think any human being could do, was make sure not one life was lost.
And I wanted to ask you, is the president, though, leading by example? Do you believe he's leading by example when you see him out at rallies and he's not socially distancing himself, and you see many of his supporters out there and many of them are not wearing masks, and the president is not really wearing a mask? Do you believe he's leading by example? And he is the right fit as far as leading the fight against COVID for people of color?
Well, leading by example is something that's subjective, as you said in your own commentary to that point. Some on his side don't believe masks help. Many in the country believe it does. I think his example is we need to get moving as a country. I don't think it's in defiance of COVID-19. I don't think he is trying to say that it's not a real disease. I think what he's trying to lead us to understand is it's here. And we are not shutting down forever, for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years. We need to get moving. And I think that's the example he's giving. On the other hand, I could point to the vice presidential debates where, Senator Harris made the comment that anything coming from Trump, she's not going to take as far as the vaccine. So, we have some issues on both sides of the fence.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on now. I see Williams, he's ready. Alan, he's ready. He's ready to chime in here. So, Alan, I want to ask you about Joe Biden and what would he do differently based upon what you've heard Mr. Williams say?
Well, first of all, Jawan, thank you so much for having us here tonight. And as you said, Levi is not my cousin. At least we don't think we're cousins. I know if he comes to the family reunion, I'm checking his macaroni and cheese and potato salad. But as it relates to COVID, we are suffering from a once in a lifetime, once in a generation pandemic, and all of our thoughts and prayers go out to each and every family that's being impacted. So let's look at the facts. Over 7.8 million cases of COVID being experienced in our country. Over 215,000 have lost their life. And one life too many. One life lost is one too many. But then you go in and you look at African Americans, and they're dying at almost twice the average. And more than 1 in 10 Black Americans in this country are uninsured. And then you look further, look at these small businesses, whether it's the car wash, whether it's the accountancy, whether it's the restaurant. More than 400,000 small businesses have closed since the pandemic has started. We saw what happened in Disney, where we lost jobs there. So what we see is a crisis of leadership. We've seen where President Trump has not led. We know that in his conversation with Bob Woodward, he lied to the American public. He deliberately misled the American people. He knew early on that this pandemic was much worse than it was. And even Dr. Fauci, who is the foremost expert on this issue, has now called into question even President Trump, using him in an ad saying that President Trump was a leader on this issue. And now Dr. Fauci is saying, please take that down because that is not accurate. So what we have is we have a president that's great at lying. We We have a president that's great at not telling the truth. But what we need is a president that's great at solving the problem and really bringing people together. As Vice President Biden said yesterday when he was in South Florida yesterday, he said when he's president, he's going to bring together both sides. Here's someone that we know has a track record in the Senate of working with both Democrats and Republicans to tackle big issues. When he was Barack Obama's vice president, he tackled bringing back the auto industry head on. When we had the Ebola crisis, he tackled that head on with President Obama. So we know the type of leader that we have running for president, and the type of leader that we will have on day one after he's sworn in on January 20th.
Okay, well, let's talk about the economy a little bit, and let's talk about Black America and the economy when it comes to the two candidates here, because there is somewhat of a difference here. And so when it comes to Black America, Joe Biden has what he calls a plan for Black America, Alan. So explain that plan for Black America and how his plan works.
So the plan that Joe Biden, Vice President Biden, has for America when he becomes president is one that will tackle head on the jobs that we have lost in this pandemic. And not even the jobs that we lost in this pandemic, but even before that, to make sure that we build back America better. When you look at the job that he and Senator Harris are going to do as far as making sure that we advance racial economic equity in our communities, making sure that we have over $15,000 down payment tax credit for first-time home buyers, making sure that make college affordable, looking at how do we pay down the loan debt for college and private HBCU graduates earning up to $125,000. So what we have is someone who will lead because he's already led before, not someone that's going to lead from his social media account, not someone that's going to continue to put out lies. We even saw a recent study that came out that said Joe Biden's plan will actually create more jobs than what has already been created in the first 3.5 years of Donald Trump's presidency. And so we know that at the very forefront of his initiative is to make sure that African Americans, that Blacks will have a better opportunity under his leadership than under the current administration. And we see that because one, he's already nominated and selected an African American to be his vice president who has a track record of making sure we have job creation in California.
Okay, well, we'll get to that too in just a moment. But moving on now and staying along the same topic, President Trump says that he has done more for Black people than any other president out there since Abraham Lincoln. Levi, briefly explain what some of those accomplishments are and tell us about the president's platinum plan for Black America. Levi.
Well, first of all, if you are a graduate of a HBCU, if you attend a Hispanic based educational institution, Native American educational institution, this president committed $250 million a year to each of these diverse institutions to be split up between the institutions. Not only did he commit those funds are given permanently. They don't have to reapply for them. So if your alma mater, if your child's education, your family's education at a historically Black college or university is important to you, this would be one of the things you'd want to do. He came out of the pocket strong with the First Step Act, which is prison reform. I could tell you a personal friend, Desmond Meade, of Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. He's a Floridian leader, someone that I respect and admire, who has been fighting for years for many of the reforms coming out of the First Step Act. Now you have a president doing the Second Step Act. Now that's critical. What I do hope that he gets to that, Reagan gave us an extra 25 years. Bush gave us an extra 25 years. Obama didn't do anything. Is that eventually he gets to giving us as African Americans, Black people in these United States, the permanent right to vote, and not a right that sunsets, I guess at this point, 2031 or 2032. So that's number one. As far as the Platinum Plan, Biden been in office 47 years, and I find it hard to believe he just figured out he's woke now. He's woke, and he just figured out what Black people need. Trump just got in office, and Trump has already proven his capability to affect policy and outcomes. Now, if we call him crazy, let him be crazy for our community. Let's not ostracize those who work with him to bring things back home for us. Let's not denigrate or demonize those who work with him to bring it back. Let him be our crazy president. And the Platinum Plan is crazy. I'm telling you, it's insane. 3 million new jobs for Black Americans. Prior to COVID-19, the Black unemployment, youth unemployment, Hispanic unemployment, women unemployment was at record lows, decade record lows, creating 5,000 new Black-owned businesses. Now, if that's not important, you could go to the Florida Coalition on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys. Look what I wrote in 2007, documenting how we fare here in the state of Florida back then. Wasn't very well. Increased capital for the Black community by $500 billion. Create safer urban communities, give Black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for their community. What he has already done for Black churches and not-for-profit is gave them the right to apply for and receive PPP, the Paycheck Protection Act. His protection.
But Jawan, if I could.
Yeah, you could go ahead and interject. Okay, go ahead and interject. It's okay.
Yeah,
Levi, because we're going down the whole list here, Levi. But you talked about some of the things there. But with that said, I think your friend here, your relative, your distant relative, has something to say. Go ahead. Go ahead, Alan.
Look, let's just set the record straight. I mean, when we look at what this president has done for the Black community, first of all, let's just look back. Not a year ago, not 3 years ago. Let's look back almost 2 weeks ago before, and thankfully the president has recovered from COVID. Obviously, he's still not heeding to the CDC guidelines as far as wearing a mask. But let's just deal with what we heard a few weeks ago at the first debate. And to the folks in Miami and South Florida, we wish we had had the debate, the town hall in South Florida that the president decided not to be a part of, but then changed his mind that he wanted to be a part of after it was already canceled. But let's focus on the facts. He said a few weeks ago to the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by, right? And so that is in direct conflict with the African-American community, because if you understand who the Proud Boys are and what they mean, just like when the president talked about Charlottesville, when they had white supremacists come out with torches talking about there were good people on both sides. I'm a father. I have a young daughter and I have a young son, and there's no president, Republican or behavior. But let's look at what my cousin Levi said. We talked about these 3 million new jobs in the Platinum Plan, or maybe more like aluminum. I don't think it's a platinum, but let's think about these 3 million. Trump already destroyed 1 million jobs in the Black community. The unemployment rate in the Black community more than tripled between August of 2019 and May of 2020. We all, my friends on the other side always like to go back and litigate the 8 years of Barack Obama. One of the greatest presidents, and that's by scholarly study, Republican or Democrat, but they always like to go back and litigate his 8 years. But under Trump, from August 19 to May 2020, they double among the number of Black men, a staggering 1.2 million people unemployed. And more than half of Black families have lost wages since March, and 1 in 3 expect to lose employment over the next 4 weeks.
And we know that it has a lot to do with COVID and, of course, the president's leadership when it comes to COVID. But I want to go back to your distant cousin here. So, Levi, I do want to ask you, though, about fanning the flames when it comes to race, because there is a division. There's a major division when it comes to this in this country. What do you have to say about that? Because it seems like the president does fan the flames when you're talking about the fact that he's doing so much for Black people, but then he'll go on and say something that will fan the flames when it comes to race and racism in America. What do you have to say about that?
You know, that's a complicated issue. But what I have to say is both sides fan the flames. You know, if we're going to do critical race theory, which I suppose we'll get into at some point, then every white person in America is a racist, including Joe Biden. And I don't have enough time to talk about how racist Joe Biden has been over the 47 years.
Joe Biden is no racist.
Crimes Act by itself is evidence of it. As a prosecutor, I had to enforce that act. So I know firsthand how difficult it was to track.
You're talking about the 1994 Criminal Justice Act, right? Okay, but with that, but back in that 1994, which I know that he was part of, but if you look back at that actually had the support of most of the Congressional Black Caucus at the same time as well.
That doesn't make it okay. I mean, that's
no, it doesn't. No, I'm not saying it makes it okay, but it was actually pushed by several leaders in the Black community as well. When you look back at the history of that, I'm not saying it's okay, and I'm not even saying it was a good thing. But with that said, I'm just saying with some of these things that with President Trump and Joe Biden, you think that they are equal? You think Joe Biden is more of a racist than some would call President Trump?
I don't think anything. You know, when I call somebody a racist, they still call me that N-word. Okay.
But you just said Joe Biden. But you just said Joe Biden is a racist. You just said.
Well, I said what I actually said. If we are going to apply CRT, critical race theory, they're all racist. That's what I said.
Okay. So okay, right. That proves my point.
Right. So at the end of the day, well, I didn't come up with critical race theory. You know, I don't even agree with it. But at the end of the day,
Supreme Court,
if we look at
hearings right now,
my community in Harvey, Illinois, where I grew up, and we look at the steel mills being closed, if we look at the wood mills being closed, if we look at any of those things, I could tell you that the individuals that would benefit from Trump's magic wand bringing back manufacturing, because the Obama and the Biden campaign say it would take a magic wand to bring it back. Now, Biden is telling us he's going to bring it back, 3 million new jobs or whatever it is he's claiming. But we know Trump did bring it back.
So Jawan, so what? It's not about a magic wand. What leader of the free world would talk about a magic wand? This isn't Harry Potter. This isn't some kind of mythical, magical land that we're living in. This is the United States of America, right? And so when we're talking about the leader of the free world, Joe Biden has proven track record. And guess what? Donald Trump had the opportunity to have the proven track record. He failed at that job. So I'm going to go back to your question. We're not going to litigate the past. We're not going to litigate what happened many years ago under the Obama-Biden coalition. What we're going to talk about is what we're going to do to go forward and to help build this country back better. So
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because we've concentrated too much on that. We got some more that I want to cover because I'm running out of time here.
Sure.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Since we already on the topic of race, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. Let's talk about defunding the police that has been out there. Let's talk about socialism, the accusations of socialism. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all those other issues and criminal justice reform. Who is the best? Who is the best to unite the country rather than divide the country? Who is the best at that? So go ahead, Alan. Let's start with you. And Levi, I want to hear from you.
Right. And I'll be brief because I want to get to some more of the more pressing issues that the listeners and the viewers of your show want to listen to and want to hear about as they gather around their TVs. But as we sit here today, George Floyd, who his birthday is today, October 14th, his daughter, Gianna, who Vice President Biden had an opportunity to meet, and she leaned into him and said, "My dad changed the world." He didn't have to change the world because he should still be alive. But we are celebrating his birthday, and people around the country, whether they're in Texas or in Georgia, are standing in lines 10, 12, 11, 10, 12, 13 hours to go and vote. That's what democracy looks like. And that's what's so important. That's what's at stake. And so when we think about Ahmaud Arbery, when we think about Breonna Taylor and the murder of those individuals, when I was in the legislature, I fought to try and repeal Stand Your Ground because of the death of Trayvon Martin. We have a president that won't even provide leadership, that won't even say, you know what, this is wrong. And that's what is fueling the flames out there. That's what's causing individuals like those in Michigan to go and think about kidnapping the governor of Michigan and kidnapping the governor of Virginia. What we need to be worried about is a president who can help us build this country back better. And so when we think about the economic plan of the Biden-Harris team, they're going to create $15,000 down payment tax credit that allows home buyers access to make their purchase. They're going to expand access to over $100 billion in low interest loans in Black and brown communities like those here in South Florida. So when we talk about moving forward, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the ones that are trying to do that. If we want to keep looking backwards, you can look at the failed leadership of Donald Trump.
All right, Levi, I want to hear your thoughts on this real fast.
When we talk about race in America, it's a very unique issue. Race in America is very unique in that those of us from different parts of the African diaspora have different experiences in our own countries when it comes to race, whether it's the Caribbean, the actual land of Africa. But America is unique because of its history. The unfortunate thing in America is that the leadership that has brought us this far into the 1960s, Martin Luther King and such, passed away, and new leadership got co-opted by the Democrat Party and have a stranglehold on our community's growth in education, finance, law enforcement, prison reform. Pick it. They have, Maxine Waters, when President Trump first got elected, standing up and telling people to harass them at their homes, when they're eating at the grocery store. So I didn't hear Trump tell anyone, harass anyone, shoot anyone, or do anything. But I heard Maxine Waters and others say it very clearly, very proudly, and very unapologetically. I've heard.
But Jawan, Maxine Waters she's not running for president. We're talking about.
It doesn't matter. We're talking about history.
That's the challenge we have. And I'm sorry to cut you off.
We're talking about history. And, the other thing I'm going to say about race in America, the Democrats don't really want to talk about where we are and how we got here. They want to talk about from this moment moving forward because the past sucks so bad for Democrats. Increased prison sentencing, lower educational outcomes, lower job performance, housing crisis. Even in Broward County, if I was to go into detail on the BS that occurred here, dealing with the Black community with Black elected Democrat leadership, it would be embarrassing for your elk, Brother Williams. What I'm looking for is a future
Levi, we're talking about the president of the United States. We're not talking about local elected officials in Broward.
Hold on just a minute, Alan.
And a better consumer of their politics. So when we're talking about Trump, I make no excuses for the man he is. I didn't raise him. I didn't give him birth. But what I do know is the policies that man has put forward and the work he has already done is beneficial to my African-American community.
Okay, Alan?
Real quick, because I know we're getting ready to close. I would just say this. As we move forward, as we look at where we need to go as a country, our community, the Black community, we cannot continue to live on the failed promises of Donald Trump. We cannot live on the rhetoric, the tweets, the divisiveness that he brings about every day. We have little kids. We have young kids. My son is frustrated watching Donald Trump tweet from the Oval Office. And so we need a leader that can bring our country back together. We need a leader that our allies around the world can believe in. We need a leader who would pay his taxes like you and I do each and every year. We need a leader who can build America back better. That's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Okay, 1 minute, Levi. Why folks out there should reelect Trump in 1 minute?
1 minute, because he's honest, he's transparent, he says what he's going to do, whether you like it or not, he does it. And most critically, he's the one that has a real plan and has proven the outcomes. Ask yourself, why do they focus on whether you like Trump or don't like? I don't need to like Trump. I need Trump to do what's good for my household, my children, my family, and my community. Tell me what he has done wrong on policy and law other than emotional like or dislike.
Okay, and with that, I'll leave it right there. I want to thank both of you for joining us for this very spirited discussion. We could sit here and we could talk for and debate for another hour, and I can have both of you talk about. We didn't get to healthcare like I really wanted to. I wanted to get more so into education because that's how much and how important this election is. But thank you both for joining me this evening for this all important conversation.
Thank you for having us, and to all the South Floridians, go out and vote. Early voting starts on Monday. Go vote. Amen.
And I think both of you can agree about that. And that's about going out and voting, no matter what. Take advantage of that. And everyone, we want to make sure that you are informed. As always, we always like to do this to make sure we leave you with something, to make sure that you're informed and prepared before you go cast your ballot. For everything you need to know about the upcoming election, including local races, issues on the ballot, Joe Biden's recent visit to South Florida, and President Trump's town hall for Miami tomorrow night on NBC. Just search Decision 2020 at NBC6.com. And be sure to follow us right here on NBC6. And you can follow me on Jawan NBC6 on Instagram, Twitter. Let me know what you thought about the show. Let me know what you thought about Levi Williams and Alan Williams. Please leave your thoughts. Be kind, be nice. And remember, education is the key to success. If you believe, you will succeed. Thank you so much for joining us on NBC6 Voices. Be sure to go out and vote. Have a great